Hey there, how you doing? It's Chris, your friendly neighborhood internet Sherpa, back again with another one of those tips on how to use the internet to bring bodies through the door, put cheeks in the seats, and of course, build your list. Today I want to hit you with one of those cliches that I tend to pull out from time to time when I'm working with brand new clients. For most of the clients I work with, I'm the first marketing dude they've ever dealt with. So normally I have to find a way to get across the marketing stuff. One of the cliches I use, it's kind of a sideways cliche, but it's just how I talk, is your customers really don't care what's in the gumbo. They just want you to spoon them up a big old bowl and push it across. I don't know why I got hooked on gumbo for this particular cliche. I guess I could have thrown anything in there. Probably has something to do with my hanging out in Louisiana, thanks to my rich Uncle Sam. By the way, if you've never been to Louisiana, I highly suggest you take a little time and wander on down there. It is a different kind of place. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not like the rest of the United States. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, the thing that's most important to get across, the thing that I used to have to work the hardest with, is to get my clients to take off their technician's hat and then put on their marketer's hat. Even if they didn't have one, you need to get one. That's kind of where I had to go with that. And what I mean by that is, if you tend to be good at a thing, you tend to be focused on that thing and think that everyone else is focused on it the same way you are. So if you're a massage therapist, hairstylist, esthetician, whatever, all that stuff you did to get good at that, well, that's your focus. And it's very easy to think that your clients are focused on that too. And they are not. They are 100% not. They want you to be focused on that, but that's not what they're there for. Not at all. They're there for what all that goodness that you've accumulated, all that knowledge, they're there for what's on the other side of it for them. They're not there for what you do. They're there for what you do does for them. And that's an interesting little concept to get across to people. Trust me. I was working with this esthetician back in the day when I first got started, when all I was doing was building websites. And she had a radio frequency skin tightening service that she provided. She was all about the machine that helped her do it. She loved that machine. And she wanted to feature it on her website. Well, I didn't know any better. I do now. I said, hey, give me a link to your manufacturer so I can get some information. And I went there and I realized that every bit of information that was on that website was about having a conversation with estheticians, telling them what they needed to hear. Nothing on that website was about, here's the information you can use to talk to your clients. Because your clients, meaning the esthetician's clients, don't care about that piece of machinery. So over time, I realized, there's a specific conversation that's going on here. So I had to get her off the concept of selling the features of the machine that she loves so much and talk about what the machine does. We eventually got there, but that was an eye-opening experience. I find that I run into it myself from time to time. Most of the people I work with, I have to get that across to. I mean, it's not the hardest thing in the world to do now, but it does take a little bit to go, hey, what you think is important isn't what your clients think is important. Even though you're saying the same thing, you're going to have to say it a little bit differently. Let's say I'm working with an esthetician and they do facials. I mean, it's an esthetician. I mean, it's not really a surprise. But in addition to the facials, let's say they do a few other things like permanent makeup or microblading. And yeah, I know they're not exactly the same thing. I've gone down that road. I've been scuffed up a time or two, but you know where I'm going with this. I'd say, hey, what's the problem that your best customer wants you to solve? Now, first of all, what I love about that question is it narrows down who we're talking about, because somebody who wants microblading may not want some of those other services. So it helps me focus in who the customer really wants to go after. So they'll say, my best customer wants permanent makeup. Cool. Now I start in with the whys. First question, why? Because they want their eyebrows to be nice and neat and pretty. And I'll get that look like, duh. I'm like, cool. Why? Because they don't want to be walking around with crunchy eyebrows or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I'm like, cool. Why? Because, and we could keep on going like that, because let's try this one. Because they don't like getting up in the morning and having to deal with that every day. There could be a bunch of things. At some point, if I keep asking why, I'm going to get to that emotional why. The emotional why is what I refer to as the underlying why, the underlying reason. That's the conversation you need to be having when you're doing marketing. That's the marketing point. That's the part that the people who are coming to you, that's what they're looking for. It's the conversation you need to be having. It's the frequency you need to be transmitting on. Once you know the conversation you're supposed to be having, everything else starts to make sense. What you do on social media, what you put on your blog, if you are blogging, everything you do, all of your marketing, the words that you use, the things that you talk about, all of that hinges on this underlying why. Because that's what the people who are looking for you are listening for. And that's how they get to, oh, this person gets me. So the question is, what is the conversation that you should be having? Once you have it, start having it as much as possible. Now, can you have 2 or 3 different conversations? You absolutely can. You may have 2 or 3 different audiences depending on what your services are or the groups you're doing or whatever like that. But what's most important is that you understand that's the conversation you're supposed to be having. Now, one of the things you keep hearing me talk about is building your list, because your list is the asset. It really, really is. Well, at some point, the people that you bump into out there on the internet, they're going to end up on your website. And you can't have this disjointed conversation. That's why I say everything starts to fall in line. What you start to talk about out there on the internet with the stuff that you're putting out there, it needs to continue when your people get to your website. Otherwise, they're not going to join your list because you broke the conversation. They came to your website to have a conversation. You got to keep having that conversation when they get there. So everything from the content on your website, your social media, even the stuff that shows up in your reviews, all of that needs to be aligned along this one conversation that you're trying to have. And once you get that done, then all kinds of wonderful things start to happen for you. And that is the takeaway, the big aha I'm hoping that you'll get from today's little blah blah session. Make sure you understand this conversation and then have it. Now, if you don't quite get how I explained all this, or your aha moment's not like a aha, it's more like a or something like that. If I'm using too many syllables or not enough syllables and you need me to clarify, hey, I'm there for you. Give me a call, 702-582-6708, or schedule some time on my schedule. Elbow some time. Just hit me up at chriscarter.net/appointments. We can kick the willy bobo and really stretch this bad boy out, because if you understand and you get it, life's going to be so much easier for you. And when it's easier for you, it makes me feel good. The bottom line is, if you need my help, you got it. Now, before I bounce out of here, let me say one more thing. I say it a lot, going to say it again in the future. Thank you very much for throwing your attention in my direction. You could be throwing your attention anywhere in the world, anywhere else at all, but for right here, right now, you're throwing it at me, and I do appreciate it. So, thank you very much. Go forth and do good things. I'll talk to you next time.